Good evening, everyone. It's Don Anderson and co-host Sunny Danforth once again from Captive Audience saying happy, or I should take that back. Wonderful Wednesday to everyone. What say you, Sunny?
It is Wonderful Wednesday. We are at the end of August. It's flying
Unbelievable.
by, Don.
Yeah, I know. I feel like those cartoons where the calendar pages go flying off.
Yes.
You ever wake up? Sometimes I wake up, and not only do I think is the I got the month wrong. Sometimes I wake up and I got the decade wrong.
Oh no.
That's
Uh-oh.
pretty bad. Sometimes I wake up, I think it's 1979, and Carter's in
Good.
office. We got wars, we got interest rates, we got inflation. Why not?
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, that's exactly it, man. It was bad. It was real bad.
Yeah, it's like I'm having a giant deja vu here, right? I'm trying to think what's different.
I'll tell you, speaking of that, I was out doing some errands with my mom today, and on the radio coming home, I listened to, anyway, on the radio coming home, they were talking about the senior citizens that are having to go back to work. And they
Mhm.
had an 80-year-old man in Florida, and he says, inflation is killing me. I have to go back to work to survive.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, my wife and I were talking about this the other day. It's like if you were a Ruth's Chris person, now you are a Applebee's person. If you were an Applebee's person, now you're a McDonald's person. If you're a McDonald's person, you're an eating at home person. If you're eating at home person, you are a cat food person. That's
Wow.
literally what these people are doing to us. I remember back in the early 80s when there was and I was too young to really comprehend what this meant. But in the early 80s, when Carter had ruined the economy, there were older people who were trying to make the decision about whether they were going to buy food, real food, or whether they were going to buy their pills. There were conversations like elderly people on Social Security and like had limited income, whether they were going to take their drugs or whether they were going to eat or they were going to just split their pills in half, which of course you have all kinds of medical issues when you do that sort of thing. People were actually having to make those kinds of decisions. And now I'm at the age where now I get that, right?
Right.
And how painful that is. And this administration has put us, well, back to the future, right?
Yes, yes, it has. In fact, it they went on to say that 1 in 4, which is 25% of our senior citizens, are going back to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is this is bad. This is really bad.
It's totally criminal. And it just reminds me of the utter immorality of this party. I don't think that anything I can think of is worse. There's lots of things that are bad, but look at how they've treated RFK and RFK Jr. I mean, this is a scion of the Democratic Party. You would have thought that we're talking the Kennedy family. There's nothing closer to royalty that we have in this country than the Kennedy family. They've been supported since he was 8 years old. He's been going to Democrat conventions, and look how they're treating him. They would not even allow him to compete in the Democratic primary, which is like stunning. They wouldn't provide him with Secret Service protection, which is even more stunning. The guy's lost his uncle and his dad and his uncle to an assassination attempt, and they refused to give him Secret Service protection. Then they only give him Secret Service protection when Trump gets shot because the public pressure was just too great to do that. And now I understand they've removed it because he's not in the party, because he's supporting Trump. I mean, what? I don't know what else. There's lots of things that could tell you that this party's completely lost it in terms of morality, but I don't think anything tells a story about it any greater than that. I mean, how petty and dangerous and anti-freedom can you get? It was one of his dad, RFK Senior's principle, uh, basic principles. We give equal protection no matter who it is, whether it's Nixon, whether it's Hubert Humphrey. We give equal protection because that's our duty to the Constitution, right? But these guys have thrown all of that out the window. Let me stop, Sonny, before I just talk too
You
long.
know, absolutely. And it's even getting worse because, let's see, the Democrat Party is destroying democracy to try to save it, as they say. They're trying to save it. And yet let's see, they've been trying to keep RFK Jr. off of the ballot in some states. Now they're demanding he be on the ballot. Try to, now that since he's joined with Trump, it's crazy. You can't even make this stuff up. And then they're trying to put another person off of the ballot in other states. There's another guy, I don't remember his name, that's running as well in the Democrat ticket. He's the one who made the Democrat ticket. He's not going to have a chance of anything. But it's crazy what the ballot dance that they are trying to do to set it up just so. Instead of letting whoever qualifies, you're on it, and the best person win. That's kind of how it's supposed to be, right?
It's Cornel West, the professor up in New York. That's who they're blocking, who's a hard lefty. So look at what they've done. They blocked Bernie Sanders, who probably would have gotten the nomination.
They removed his nomination.
Took him completely out. Cornel West, I'm not sure if they've successfully done it or not, but they're trying to block him from running. So this is, and Trump, they sued and did everything, tried to put him in jail. They've done everything, even tried, allegedly, I have to say the words allegedly, tried to kill him. And RFK, they've taken off the ballot. And then look at what they're doing to Tulsi Gabbard, right? So they've turned her, and she can't even travel without being harassed like a terrorist. The party that's screaming and squawking the most about being pro-freedom and protecting democracy is the very party that's doing everything in its power to destroy democracy.
They are 100%. They are.
Yeah,
it's smoke and mirrors with them, and the lies are just hardly unpalpable. What if their lips are moving? It is a lie. It's a lie,
and all you have to do is be a thinking person. I mean, when can you ever remember a candidate for president not talking to the press?
Right.
For how long has this been? Are we talking 2 months? Is it 8 weeks? I can't remember exactly the date. In any case, it's at least, so 8 weeks, and she hasn't had a single interview, and she has the audacity to call Trump a coward because he doesn't want to conform to her new rules of engagement around this upcoming debate. I mean, the gaslighting and the lying here is just spectacular.
Well, now she's going to have a sit down, apparently, and she's got to bring Walls along with her. It's like, hello, I need a chaperone. I can't handle it, so I got to bring a chaperone with me. Oh my word!
Calling the other party not coward. The other party has, I think it was like Vance, literally followed her airplane and followed reporters and answered questions and asked her to come out. And she ran and hid. Yes. It's incredible.
It is incredible. It's and daily it brings something new. It truly is daily bringing something new, and hard to watch at times, but it's the world that we're living in right now. And with the joining up of RFK Jr. and Trump, I think it's wonderful. I really do.
Oh, it's just amazing. You look at the things look at what that party has done. So you're talking about people who used to be Democrats. So Musk was a Democrat supporter. They ran him out of the party. RFK ran him out of the party. Tulsi Gabbard ran her out of the party. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few more, but they're literally imploding with this type of behavior. So any rational thinking person, I don't see how you could do it. I don't see you can vote for them. It's just,
I don't either. In fact, I'm posting a link from PJ Media that actually the headline is "Democrats Save Democracy by Deciding Who Will and Won't Be on the Ballot in the Swing States," with a picture of Comrade Kamala there. And it's just crazy.
When have you ever heard of a candidate afraid to articulate their positions? And then when they do articulate some of them, they've stolen them from Trump. So what's the one, the no tax on tips? She had the utter nerves to start promoting no tax on tips. She had the utter nerve to have an ad that had pictures of the wall behind her that Trump tried to build. And now she's saying she's going to stop immigration. We had an opportunity to stop immigration for 4 years in a row. It's how stupid do they think we are?
Yes, and she's now come out with a statement, or her whoever's handling her press, that, oh no, she is not supportive of the electric vehicle mandate. She is backtracking, flip-flopping. She's the flip-flop queen is what she's doing, Don. She's
Oh, I mean,
worse than a pancake or a fish out of water, flipping and flopping around.
this has got to be, at least for the Trump Vance team, from a marketing and ads perspective, the easiest job in the world. All they have to do is just run video of her in terms of what she says. I mean, Trump and Vance don't have to say anything. Same for Waltz. Just run video of them.
Well, in fact, I saw on Truth Social, and I will tell you, if you're not on Truth or you're not on X, you are missing the truth and you're missing the boat, um, because you can hear from them yourself, from Elon Musk to RFK Jr. to Donald J. Trump and the children, his kids, and so I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. We got stream of consciousness going here, and that's okay. That's okay. Because I just lost mine too.
Oh no. And
Yeah.
so with the wall, so yeah, Kamala, comrade Kamala, flip-flopping around. She says that she has nothing against walls, nothing against electric vehicles, and she is plagiarizing every idea of Trump's talking points. She is now, she's just gaslighting those people. And I think frankly, it speaks to desperation when your ideas won't sell the people, won't bring the people to your side. That's how bad it is, that you have to now steal your opponents, the ideas that America really wants. And so say your prayers that those that are not educated, those that are not smart enough to listen and know and do any research, will not believe the flip-flopping.
Well, I think eventually, and I think their strategy, they learned from what they did with Biden. I mean, look, they kept the guy in the basement, and they stayed in power for a long, long time. And you almost wonder if part of their strategy, I'm talking the Democratic strategy, to get rid of Biden was to put him in front of a camera where
Yeah.
he promptly collapsed and there was no escaping it. So
Yeah.
now you look at the same strategy here. Here's a person who, she's not Biden. That's the one thing they seem to have going for her. She's not Biden. Well, let's keep her away from the camera and see how long we can ride this. And maybe that's the strategy. In fact, maybe the strategy for wanting to change the terms of the debate is to see if they can get Trump to back out of it. It wouldn't be Trump backing out of it. It would be her really backing out of it. And so then saying Trump backed out of it. So she doesn't have to get in front of a camera. And can she string this along long enough with enough lies, with the big time press backing her, that she can get across the finish line without ever getting in front of a camera?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's the strategy.
Well, so that strategy, along with this who's on the ballot attempt that they're working on right now, that's what they're working on. I don't recall ever seeing such a fight to keep people on the ballot or off the ballot. Have you?
No, never. It's
Okay.
really,
So let me just give you a little thread on this article. Michigan Stalin-loving Secretary of State is keeping RFK Jr. on the ballot, hoping to draw votes away from Trump, even though Kennedy dropped out. Wisconsin followed suit, and Wisconsin Election Commission voted 5-1 that Kennedy must remain on the ballot. Conversely, Cornel West wants to remain on the ballot, but Democrats are fighting fang and talon to keep him off the ballot in the swing states. You can't make this stuff up.
no.
And so let's see. Michigan. Michigan has got Cornel West off. No, they put him back on. Let's see. It says Benson succeeded in keeping West from the Michigan ballot, but a judge clown slapped her fascist face and put West on the ballot. Let's see who else. RFK wants to be removed from ballots in 10 states, um, but swing states are fighting to keep him on. The same
Mhm.
states are fighting to keep West, who wants to remain on the ballot, out of the picture, knowing he will draw votes from Comrade Kamala. West is most popular with black voters. Keeping him off the ballot is a kick in their faces. I mean, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's just the gamesmanship, and it shouldn't be this way, but it's
No,
disgusting
no,
that
it is
that's
disgusting.
yeah, but that's the game that has to be played with when you're playing with Democrats because they have that party has zero principles, and this makes me go back to this whole thing around this whole terms of the debate thing. So, did you hear about the terms of the debate that she wants to modify them to? So, she wants to be sitting down at the table with her notes, right? And so now you can interrupt each other. You think through why you'd have that strategy. You know, this person's been in office for 4 years, and they can't remember their own positions at this stage of the game. You're that afraid to debate the guy that you've been in office 4 years, you don't know your positions. Number one. Number two, you want the crutch of sitting across the table, being able to look at your notes. And I think this is the other thing. I think the calculus is if they can interrupt each other, then she can be made look like the victim if Trump
Yes,
interrupts her and attacks her. I think that is the strategy. It probably benefited Trump what they did before with Biden to make it so that they couldn't interrupt each other, and
right.
worked out great for Trump. So it's interesting.
Yes, and I saw a tweet from Trump. Trump is back on X, and
Mhm.
I saw a tweet from him today that he says, "Okay, the rules have been set. We're all standing. There's no notes, and
Wow,
we're going to go with the rules that we had previously, and that's good."
boy, I tell you, unless she gets some kind of a injection from one of these sci-fi movies where she can suddenly start retaining stuff, I don't. I think that's going to be the end of her, just like it was the end of Biden. I mean, she is like unbelievable. Anytime she gets in front of a mic by herself, she just implodes.
Well, it's going to be good to watch because we all have to watch and pay attention and not just get the dissection from a talking head somewhere. Absolutely, we do. And
What? Yeah. Well,
hey, we've got Karen back. Hi, friends, and Nicholas and Pat. It's so nice to know that they are here, and Bobby and Lori. It really is
hey, everybody.
just a few, yeah.
But
And
just,
so
just so you look
let's
at, well, sorry.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, just if you look at objective fact, I was just looking at this article, and this is one of these underreported items. So it's the Department of what, blah, 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 internal watchdog for the Department of Homeland Security. So they've been tracking 32,000 unaccompanied migrant children. Think about what that means 32,000 unaccompanied migrant children over the past 5 years. What do you think are happening to them? And it's all because this administration, this border czar, has not done her job.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you, it's a crime, and will she ever get asked that question?
Well,
What
yeah.
happened? Because she is not willing to answer anything. And so there's a interview that's coming that she's bringing her lapdog with her, and he's going to probably take 50% of the time. He'll interrupt her if she starts going off the rails, and
And it's
I'll tell you,
CNN. It's
he
like
is further left than she is, I think.
he is. It's unreal. And it's CNN. It's like the friendliest venue possible.
I
They've
know,
refused. Now who
for
did it?
their
Was it,
side.
yeah, it was ABC. Trump went to ABC, but they're refusing to allow Fox to moderate one. It's incredible
Of course.
how chicken they are. And he wins anyway.
Yeah.
It's like going to a prize fight and you're only allowed to fight with one hand. I mean that's literally what's happening here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. So, what about what's happening with Zuckerberg? This is big news. He wrote a letter apologizing, basically a statement of fact that yes, Meta, we capitulated with the government. we were requested by the Biden Harris administration and the White House to censor articles, the computer, the laptop, and things on COVID-19. This is a dang big deal. I think there's going to be a lot that comes out of this, Dawn, because I our Constitution, we have a First Amendment right, and our Constitution, nothing has been that our government has the right to do this.
Mhm.
And now with Zuckerberg, which we already knew this happened, but now he openly states it. And
Now,
his
see,
apology, this is spurring more investigations. And in this one article I've got here from PJ Media, it's spurring Congress to defund government agencies.
mhm. Well, my guess with this is I doubt that he suddenly woke up and suddenly had a dose of integrity. I think this is just what do you call it, brazen self-interest. I think this is reading the tea leaves and thinking, there's a better than 50-50 chance that Trump gets elected. And if he does, and I'm still holding the positions I've been holding, I'm going to be a big fat target. So maybe if I start hedging my bets now, I can minimize some of the pain that's coming my way for the crimes, and I mean crimes that I've committed over the past 4 years. That is my read. I just don't see the guy waking up and suddenly having principles because he's been horrible.
Well, I agree with that, but at the same time, there is talk about breaking up the his organization
Sure.
because there's a lot of organizations under Meta,
Hmm.
and and he also, like Pat just said, he was interrogated in Congress. I don't know if that was under oath and now him admitting other things where he wouldn't answer in front of Congress and whatnot. I really think, and maybe he did get a conscience when he saw, the this founder and CEO of Telegram, Pavel
Hmm.
Durov, getting
And that,
arrested
mhm,
in getting arrested in France as he steps off a plane. Could it be related to that? The warrant for his arrest,
mhm,
as I've read it, was just issued very shortly before
mhm.
he landed.
Yeah,
You
that's.
know, and now in France, a judge has extended the holding of him.
Mhm,
He was only supposed to be held for 96 hours, and then he has to be charged. And they've come up with a litany of charges, but the a judge has said that they can hold him longer.
mhm,
And for what somebody could have done on your platform, well,
mhm.
hell, what's happening on Meta's platform?
Sure. Yeah, and if the Democratic Party continues to win, they will do that same thing to you eventually.
Yes.
It's only a matter of time. Um, and I'm sure, and if you look around yourself, there's been a number of cases that are not breaking friendly for big data. Like we were just talking earlier, there's this case in Missouri where RFK looks like he's successfully been able to get the Supreme Court to rule 5-4 for them to move forward with a case against the about anti-vaccine posts being deleted by big media. So a number of these cases are breaking the wrong way for them, and that doesn't bode well for someone who's been behaving like he.
No, and Zuckerberg says he regrets demoting COVID-19 content. I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. So let's see. Now free speech is so under attack, he's willing to go, oh, sorry, oops, we succumbed.
And that may have something to do with the fact that more and more information is going to become public very soon about just what those
Yes.
vaccines are doing to us. That data is already public, but
Oh,
big
yes.
data is suppressing and not reporting it. But And I think that's another one of the reasons why they hate Kennedy so much, was because RFK is very much looking at how our population is less healthy than it was 4 or 5 years ago. And I think
Yeah.
most of us can look around and vouch for that. Every time I turn around, there's somebody sick or somebody sicker than they should be. It just, I don't remember this 5, 6 years ago
Or dying.
or dying.
I'll tell you what, to see the list of obituaries in the newspaper
Hmm.
week after week after week, it's astonishing. It really is. And I see people who I recognize who they are in our local little town newspaper.
Hmm.
And where we used to only see one or two, now it's 8, 10,
Hmm.
12.
And there's other things too. Now, what I'm about to say is something I used to like laugh at people when they said this sort of thing a few years ago. Now I have to scratch my head and like, well, given what we've seen in the last 10 years, anything's possible. So you hear these people talking about things like uh, the amount of estrogen in the water due to the birth control pill. Now that was something I used to, that sounds like, BS science to me, you know. But now we're seeing that the testosterone of men has dropped precipitously over the last few years. Our birth rates decline. Now, there's other factors obviously that impact that. We're down to like 1.6 right now, replacement being 2.1, right? That obviously ain't good. So that's happening. And you start to wonder. Then I saw this military report the other day. I should have kept this and posted it for you all. But it was talking about the change in the makeup of the military. Now, it used to be these young men, the complaint was they're getting fat. They're showing up, they're fat, they're out of shape. We've all heard that before. But now they're showing up like super skinny and like no muscle. It's like crazy. And and then the women that they're recruiting are like huge. So now you don't have the fat guys, you have fat women, which that wasn't the case before. And the guys are like, they're almost like they look like olive oil. And then once I saw that article, my wife and I we go grocery shopping together once in a while. We're looking around the Checkers or whatever, and the guys, the young men who are like cashiers and that sort of thing. I mean, their biceps are like my wrist. It's now that's anecdotal, but it makes me wonder.
Yeah.
Has our water been altered by these things? Has it been altered by all this fluoride? And what's been the impact of that? We've not seen studies of that stuff. The food chain, I think we'd all agree that's not what it used to be, say 30 or 40 years ago. So I think RFK might be onto something, and big food and certainly big pharma is totally against this. And I'll stop there.
Well, I read an article some time back, and then I listened to a radio program, and they were talking about this fellow was a scientist that had studied a particular weed killer, and he said, so he says, I worked with a group of scientists that were asked to study this, and
Hmm.
we did, and we gave up our, gave the report, and then the report, they said, okay, that's great, thank you very much, and it was never published. He says in that report, and actually, no, it wasn't Roundup.
Hmm.
In that report was that it actually lowered testosterone level,
Hmm.
and some of the things that you were just mentioning. And this is something that is used on quite a few things that we eat. And so they talked about it, and they said, well, the scientist said, so because I didn't like that they wouldn't publish the report, I actually quit the company,
Hmm.
and I went and started doing my own research because this is a big deal. And yet some countries have banned the use of this, but our government has said, oh no, it's okay. It's in such small amounts, it's all okay.
Hmm.
And I really believe that there's a lot to
Hmm.
this.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the sort of thing I would have blown off 5 or 10 years ago, but now you look at it, and
Yeah.
big pharma, big food, and what they're doing, it's very much reminds you of. And I saw it. This is not original thinking. I don't you all think I was smart to think of this? Can't remember where I saw this article, but they're behaving like the cigarette companies behaved 30, 40, 50 years ago when they fought and fought and fought. and they'd have doctors on TV talking about how safe cigarettes were and cigarettes don't cause cancer. They fought that till the bitter end. And it wasn't
Yes.
until the late 60s, early 70s when the evidence became so overwhelming that they couldn't anymore. And so big food and big pharma, similar kinds of behavior, except they've learned the lessons of what the cigarette companies did wrong, and they're putting strategies into place to prevent themselves from being outed like that. Because these organizations that are supposed to be protecting us are being heavily, way over influenced by the companies, these lobbyists. I know for sure, for example, with the pharma industry, they set the they often do the studies and set the protocols for how a drug should be used, and they'll set them in such a way that you need more of their drug. And I'll just use an example. Let's say HDL cholesterol. Once upon a time, it was considered that you needed to have like a 35 HDL to be considered healthy. And then suddenly, a few years ago, that number became 40. Well, why'd that number become 40? If that number was 40, now you got to use more. Now the doctor's going to write more prescriptions for cholesterol because
Right.
more people have that number. That sort of thing goes on all the time. And the same thing is true of the food pyramid. There's all kinds of stuff in the food pyramid that has no business being there. And we know it causes, now we know it causes obesity, but those things sell more, which
Yes.
is why cheese is in virtually everything. So it would be great to have an administration come in and start tearing us. These people have to be separated, um, from those positions. And I'll say one last thing was at the laugh. When I was in the military, I worked in defense contracting, and we couldn't even have, the contractor couldn't buy us a $5 cup of coffee because that'd be seen as influencing our ability to do multi-billion dollar deals. Meanwhile, down the street, your local congressman is buying a $2 million mansion, but the military contractor can't even get a $5 cup of coffee to negotiate a deal. The whole thing is hysterical. I'm sorry. I'll stop.
Yes, well, we have those that legalized bribery called lobbyists, that are whining and dining the politicians. But in the military, then you couldn't do that, huh? Not even a
Unless
cup
you're,
of
yeah,
coffee.
unless you're a flag officer. Now
Ah,
that's different.
ah,
Us lowly captains and lieutenants, no, you can't even get a $5 cup of coffee, which I don't have a problem with. But I do have a problem with the general going across the table and getting the job the next day and making 500 grand to influence policy, which is what
right.
happens all the time.
Yes, and in fact, at our dinner table, we were talking about this the other day that under Trump, he had signed, I guess, an executive order and he said if you're working in my administration and you leave the White House and leave my administration, you can't be a lobbyist for like 5 years. Frankly, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, no,
You
it's
know?
absolutely good. That absolutely should be the case,
Yeah.
because
So
it
I don't know
rhymes
if that's
with
still
freedom.
enacted or not, or if that was one of the 150,000 executive orders that Biden signed. Can you imagine when Trump gets reelected, the stack of executive orders he's going to sign? Because he's going to undo all the stuff of Biden.
Okay. He's
That's
got
what
to
I
go.
thought about.
He's got to go melee. What is that? Is that?
Yes.
He's got to
Yeah.
bring the
Yeah.
chainsaw. He should have. If he wins, that guy should be at the inaugural ball. I want to see melee there with his chainsaw.
Yeah. Wow. And to talk about, I was reading Lori's comment there, and I've had a doctor tell me I've listened to the doctors and they say, you need to do this. And I said, why? And why was the threshold lower? Or why was the range lower? They've done it with blood pressure. They've done it with your cholesterol numbers. Oh, well, we have more science. Really? Do
Well,
you? Or is it data that's, a theory that you put it into a computer and it pops out, this is what it could do?
mhm.
Do you really have data? I don't
Well,
know, but
well,
I've said this for decades actually that, oh, they just changed the number to get more people on the drugs.
that's
And
exactly
now
what
I
it is.
think there's times that having taken a medication is a good thing for you,
Mhm,
but I also believe that there is definitely alternatives. All the medications we have were made from plants.
mhm.
They all came from nature, truthfully.
Yeah.
But they couldn't put that in a cornerstone. They had to modify it just a little bit so they could patent it. They couldn't patent
Well,
nature.
well, I was in that industry, and I'll tell you, one day it just dawned on me after being in the industry for like 3 years that the reality is this: your physician is a drug pusher. I mean, it's legalized drugs. When they go to medical school, almost all of the training is on how to use drugs. There's almost no training on nutrition, exercise, alternatives, any of that stuff. So you go to the doctor's office, they're simply looking at, how to treat a symptom. They're not looking at how to make you better. And for a ton of these diseases, and more than I think we realize, it's diet driven. Now, some of them we know are like obvious, like obesity, diabetes, hypertension. You change it, you change what you're eating, and you get instant results. But a lot of other ones, I think, follow the same path, but no one's really looking at that. And I'm talking about things like cancer,
Yeah.
can be impacted by what we're eating. And what we're eating has definitely changed over the last like 30 years. Um, and as a result, we're seeing higher. It's not just that we're an older population. Obviously, the older you get, I shouldn't say obviously, because it may not be that obvious. It's what's happening is that you get older, you get more likely to get diseases that are not diseases of the young, like Alzheimer's and all these other things. But we're seeing those things creeping up in younger people now, number one.
Yeah.
And number
Yeah.
two, you go to other parts of the globe where they don't have the same diet as us. They're not dying from cancers and and cardiovascular disease and all this stuff at the rate that we are. So it just, I think you have to conclude that something's not right, and that going to the doctor isn't necessarily the answer. If they're not talking, and they don't get paid, by the way, that's the other thing. The incentives are perverse. They're not paid. No one makes money on you having a better diet and exercise. They do make
Right.
money on you taking a bunch of drugs.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. They want to push the medications, and yet we can do a lot for ourselves by eating right. In fact, I saw today a food pyramid I've never seen. I don't remember where I saw it, and the whole bottom portion was meat. It was a meat-based diet,
Right. Hmm. Yeah.
and at the top it had a little bit of fruit.
Hmm.
And anyway, it's
Huh.
yeah.
And, and here's the thing: I don't know what's right, except I do know this. To the degree that you can eliminate processed foods, I almost believe any of those diets will work. And then you have to tweak it for your own body. But eliminate things that were man-made, you start with that. Um, you know,
Yes.
but we all got to develop our own expertise. You can no longer trust the medical establishment. I think that's been well established, right? Given what they did to us with COVID, I don't know how you can trust them.
Yes.
They
Yeah,
just did what they were told to.
that's true. That's true. It's going to be interesting listening, to RFK Jr. and his this is kind of his bailiwick.
Mhm.
And when Trump is elected, it's going to be interesting.
Put that guy in
Ye-
charge of Health and Human Services or something like that, right?
Yes, and let's straighten out the what is it, the NIH?
Yeah, the NIH, the CDC, the pharmaco-industrial complex, I call it.
Yes,
You know,
yes. I'll tell
Eisen,
you
Eisen,
what.
yeah.
I
Eisenhower.
could see him just taking his hand and going, "Okay," doing a melee on it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like chessboard.
Okay, let's start over.
Right,
We're
right.
not doing that
Well,
anymore.
Eisenhower, in his farewell address back in 1959, gave us his famous warning about the military-industrial complex, and he was right on that count too, which is why we have all these wars going on. I'm convinced. But what he did not predict was the same thing with the medical food industrial complex as well. So any of these large organizations, I think it was Milton Friedman who wrote a book called "Small is Beautiful." We got to get back to small.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I like Lori's comment. Release the 6,000 patents, and I think people would be shocked. I mean, because I agree with that. And Pat, yeah, screw the who. I'm
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
It's
they're all like what do you call it? They're GMOs, HMO. I can't remember GMOs. I want to say HMOs, but basically government, organizations.
NGOs,
NGO,
non-government aid
right,
organizations.
right. And their
Yeah.
sole purpose at the end of the day is to create one world government. I mean, that's pretty much it. So what? So what are we worried about? Who guidelines for? It's like crazy.
Well, it is about control because that's what they
Mhm.
want, and they are very rapidly implementing and trying to implement, as you're seeing all over the world.
Mhm.
Look at the UK right now. The people getting arrested, convicted, and sentenced to jail for not just months, but for years over a social media post or your thought. You were, you know, the woman, the senior citizen, the woman that was silently praying across the street
Mhm.
from an abortion clinic. And it's atrocious what's happening. And so that's what, and then you have in France, you know, here you have the Telegram's CEO, you know, Pavel Durov, arrested.
Mhm.
And it is about control and controlling the narrative
Mhm.
because they don't like people that are doing, they don't like independent media. They don't like media they cannot control. You know, we're not parrots.
Mhm.
And you and I are not parrots. We didn't get the talking points. Somebody handed the talking points to us, and we're just going to
Right.
spout whatever.
Mhm.
You know, we're looking up things on our own, and we then have a little chat for a few minutes before we come on our captive audience.
Mhm.
And sometimes we don't even do that. We just go, let's roll. Okay, I'll, you
Right.
know, whatever you want to
Yeah.
do. You
No,
know,
they are the thought police, and it's so. And I remember Rush Limbaugh years ago. I may have said this in previous podcasts when suddenly they were using the same words. This is like in 2003 or four. He had this talk on the radio where he talked about they're using the same words. And I can't remember. It was when one of the Bushes was running, and they were all using the same words to describe the Bushes. And now you see the same. So now suddenly, you may have noticed this. Now suddenly the word is weird. So now Republicans are weird. Weird, 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 weird. You turn to any station, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, MSC, they're all weird. Now, how is that? It's like they get a playbook every Monday morning from the top of the organization. And here's what you're supposed to say. It's so obvious. And the funny thing about this whole weird thing that makes you laugh, because weird was cool in their lexicon 15 minutes ago. Portland has been weird since like the early 80s. They were the first city to go weird. And those of you from the area know this. Remember the old, was it Adams? I can't remember the guy's name, the mayor back then, who had the famous picture of himself flashing himself with his coat. I can't remember his
I
name.
don't know.
You remember? Yeah, that was like in the early '80s, and that was like a whole big deal. And there was, in fact, the statue might still be there in downtown Portland of him flashing himself, and that was the beginning of Portland heading in that direction. Then Austin went that way, and now all of a sudden Minneapolis, all these other cities are considering themselves weird. But now I guess weird's not cool because trying to apply that to Republicans, which is hilarious. When what could be more weird than advocating that children get chopped up, that parents have no say so over whether their kids get chopped up, that a man could be a woman and a woman could be a man. Whatever they say, they're already doing it.
Yes. So earlier, you talked about it was talked about
Was it the
what our
foster children?
government is able to, what our government is trying to keep us away from, or stopping us from doing. You know, we talked to just briefly before we came on the air. There was an article that you were going to bring up, and and it had to do with custody of your children.
Oh yes, that was the transgender thing. So now it it's probably well. So here's the latest thing in a number of states, and of course Oregon is front and center in this. But
Of
if
course.
yep, of course. So foster children or children that are looking to adopt, they have what I'll call the Christian litmus test, which basically means if you're a Christian, they're going to block you from being able to adopt a kid. Just like not that long ago, they were blocking if you were white that you couldn't adopt a kid who didn't look like you, right? So that was another one of the things they did, thus dooming kids to be parentless for their whole childhoods. So now they're doing the same thing here. So part of the litmus test is they'll ask you if you're willing to call a kid by their pronoun if they decide to go the pronoun route. If you say no, you can't adopt a kid. The kid wants to get chopped up and you say no, well, then you can't adopt a kid. So this is clearly, if you're not going to affirm the child and what the public school says they want to be, then suddenly, you can't adopt a kid. So it's another anti-Christian, anti-Western civilization idea, which at the end of the day, when you really boil all this stuff down, um, everything else is peripheral when you get down to basic morality. Because if you don't have basic morality and you don't have principles, then nothing else can exist. A constitutional republic cannot exist with people who have like no principles. Free market economics can't be by definition free if you have people who have no principles. So the project of the Marxists is to destroy basic morality, which at the end of the day is to basically destroy Judeo-Christianity. And this, you see this all over the place, like we've never seen it before. The mask is off; they're no longer trying to hide it.
Well, absolutely. And I want to tell you about I know somebody directly that had custody of their grandchildren. And then they had a hearing because the parents were having some issues. And they had a hearing with the judge to make that a permanent deal. And they were asked, what if these children who won 18 months and 7 years, what if these children decide to be, you know, want to change their sex?
Mhm.
Well, that's not what, and their answer was, that's not our belief. They're very Christian people, and they were actually denied to keep their grandchildren because of that. This is not adopting. This is a familial custody right here in Oregon.
Yeah, that's that's the type of Marxism we're headed for.
Yeah.
Uh, these people have zero principles. Remember, it was Marxists in China who literally told women they can have only one child. If they got pregnant again, they'd rip them right out of their homes and do an abortion right on the spot. Women were having to be pregnant with a second child, having to hide in the woods and then hide the kid to keep them from killing them. Um, that's these people on that same trajectory. And if you think for a second they wouldn't do it, think again and read your history books because they will.
Yeah. Yes, they will. They will, absolutely. And yeah, it's a sad day, and this is why our elections are so important. It's a sad day in America, but in the world that this type of thing is happening. I will tell you that those two children went to a different family member, and I pray that they're in good hands. But it blows your mind that a family member is that has permission to that the parents would like that person to have their child because they're going to live that person's values while they're going through whatever they're going through, um, and the courts say no.
And you got to realize the underlying belief, because the Marxist core belief is you don't you belong to the state. You don't have any rights.
Yeah.
One of the things that make the United States unique amongst all countries in the world is that we were citizens, we were not subjects. And that's one of the things that separates us from Western European style democracies as well. They came from monarchies, and they still are subjects. We're citizens, and their rights are granted to them by their government or their king. The only thing they changed, they went from the government granting the rights, king granting the rights, to the government granting the rights. Our rights come from God, and that, and and they're inalienable rights, as set
Mhm.
forth so eloquently by Thomas Jefferson. And that's what makes us unique. And that's one of the reasons why they want to destroy the United States, because it's the only country like this in the entire world. And the way you take it down is you take down that basic Judeo-Christian belief that our rights don't come from man; our rights come from God. Um, and you don't have to be a Christian to get that. You benefit from it whether you're a Christian or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, that's a good note to end on there because our rights are inalienable. They come from God. They do not come from government.
Yeah, yeah, and as such, when you think of look, when you take the last thing I'll say, It's actually as painful as it is. There's benefit in them doing this because we got soft. Christians and conservatives got soft, and we didn't draw a line in the sand and say we're not let you step over this. We just kept backing up and acquiescing, and at some point, you got to put on the gloves, and that's the place where we are. So, in the end of the day, this is a good thing. This is a good thing.
Well, it is. We have to, fight for it, which means we have to get out of our comfort zone and, speak up and act and be at those school boards, be at, those areas and speak out, be actively speaking out. It's in order to make that change. I want to say that one very quick thing is that the race is heating up with Chavez Dreamer versus Bynum. And we've got to hold that seat. We've got to hold the seat.
Mm-hmm.
And we did have a good, there is good news. And I like to finish on good news. The
Absolutely.
Supreme Court had declined to reinstate the $475 billion student loan relief program. This is a good news.
That's awesome.
Very good news.
Yeah.
Shut Biden down.
Yep, absolutely. Shut her down. And things are trending in the right direction. Truth at the end of the day always wins, and truth is going to come out. So our objective is just to shorten the time period it takes for that to happen, right?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Have a good night, everybody. Like and share everywhere.